Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to do a video on things to consider when buying a silencer. Halfway try and get you to the answer of which silencer I should buy. To put this in context, we've done two prior videos to this. One on utilizing a SID kiosk. It's something the Silencer Shop has that automates the process, a lot of the process, to get your fingerprints in digitally, submit a bunch of your paperwork electronically to them. They actually print it out and then send that packet off for you to the ATF when you're buying a silencer. Yes, the second video we did was about how to buy a silencer overall, not utilizing the kiosk, but how to buy one here in 2021. And should any of those rules or things change, we'll note down in that video some of the things that change as they come up, as we can remember them. But as of right now, that video is obviously still current, all the information in it is still good. So if you're curious as to how to buy a silencer, check that out. We walk you through the steps, either using an automated process like the SID kiosk, or if you'd rather do it old school with paperwork, we run through that as well and go through all that, answer some of the myths, or debunk some of the myths, if you will, and go through it. Yes, silencers are legal in the vast majority of states. You can hunt with silencers in the vast majority of states. So this video is going to be kind of, I guess, maybe the third in that, as far as what silencer should you buy, what are some things to consider. So in the past, I've pointed back to previous videos we've done. Well, at this point, if you look at our silencer playlist, we're up to about 50 videos in there of roughly 50 different silencers. It's more than that, because a lot of those videos we have, we did some silencer metering testing where we have, half a dozen or more silencers in there for each category. So I have no idea how, probably, closer to 100 at that point, but at least 50 different videos roughly are out there right now in that playlist. So pointing all of you back to those playlists, that playlist now at this point, unless it's for a specific video, you're gonna have to watch hours and hours and hours worth of footage to get some of this information. So I wanted to condense it down like I've been asked to do, and kind of put it out here for you, some considerations and things to think about when you are buying either your first silencer or your 5th or 10th or 20th silencer. Some of these, the first one is going to be our most obvious one. What caliber are you going to be shooting through it? So, and this will depend, whether it's your first silencer or your 20th silencer or somewhere there in between. If it's your first silencer, consider what calibers you want to shoot through it. Now, I don't want to get this off into the weeds on some of the multi-purpose calibers where you can change out and shoot anything from pistol to center fire rifle and everywhere in between. Some of these, multi-purpose, multi-use silencers, because the do-all silencers are really cool, but especially if it's your first silencer, may not necessarily be the way to go, and maybe by the end of this video you'll see why, or maybe you'll see some of the reasons that I listed and think, wow, well, I hit all those other sides of that, maybe that is the way to go. So caliber, one of the first things to easily think about, we're going to talk about pistol caliber first. So pistol caliber cans, let's start there. One of the easiest ways to think about this is, for example, if you're just going to be shooting 9mm or smaller diameter in perpetuity, and you will never shoot 40 or 45. You never plan on shooting, any other anything larger than your 9mm. Then getting a dedicated 9mm can in this instance can be a great way to go. I say that because there are some fantastic 9mm cans. We've tested several of them here on the channel that do absolutely blow away some of their 45 caliber counterparts. So that may be the way to go. At the same time, if you are looking at shooting 45 caliber, for example, you may want to go with a 45 caliber can, even though you're primarily going to shoot 9mm through it. There are different, considerations to have, right? So some of these have replaceable end caps, so that you can put a 9mm end cap on your 45 can. Change out your adapter on it, obviously, so you get a 1/2x28, so you can put it on your 9mm host, and then shoot 9mm through that. Just don't forget to replace that end cap back with a 45 caliber end cap before you go ahead and throw it on your 45 caliber handgun. So those are some things to consider. One thing a lot of people will try and do is, and I want to touch on the 22, right? Because 22s are dirty, like super dirty. Dirty, dirty, dirty. And if you have not cleaned a 22 caliber can, a can that shoots a lot of high rounds, or even moderate, even low to moderate 22 fire through it, you don't understand just how dirty the 22 rimfire will make your can. So if you are shooting 22, even anything more than one round, a week or something, right? And I'm being a little dramatic here, but my point is that I really want to get across to you, if you're going to be shooting any amount of 22, get a dedicated 22 caliber can. You do not want to, you shouldn't be at least, running that through your other cans that you are going to have to spend a tremendous amount of time, extra time cleaning them. Regardless of how much you love to clean your cans, and this is something we're going to get into with serviceability later, regardless of how much you like to clean your cans, understand that your 22 cans are going to require significantly more maintenance, especially than, let's say, your centerfire rifle cans. We've got a small 5.56 can right here, dedicated 5.56 can. You can shoot 22 through this, won't hurt it at all. You can, it's actually serviceable if you want to. You can break it down, you can clean it inside. But if you're just going to be shooting full power 5.56 through this, you're pretty much never-ish, right? I don't want to say the word never, but you're going to be able to go a very long time, like years, even with high volume fire through this before you really even need to consider cleaning it. The high pressure that comes through with 5.56, the high temperatures you shoot at, especially this can's built like a tank. This thing is meant to shoot full auto fire. We've abused the Jesus out of this thing. There's a good standalone video on it. This is the Liberty Constitution, by the way. Run it a ton on short barrels. It will blow out a lot of that carbon and build up as it gets hot, as those gases go through there, which means you don't have to clean it as much. Me, I don't like cleaning guns. I certainly don't like cleaning suppressors. Having a dedicated 22 can that's serviceable, that you can get in there, and the components are in there right, is honestly the way to go. So if you're going to get one dedicated can, 22 is going to be the way to go for that. So for my instance, for example, my first pistol caliber can, since kind of still on pistol, was this Ghost 45M. This is actually in its short configuration right here. You put the other module on there, it'll kick it out about another 2 inches in length and really quiet it down pretty nice. Short in configuration, it is kind of loud. You're going to probably need should be probably wearing hearing protection with it. If you put a wipe in there, you won't necessarily need it. But in the longer configuration, you can shoot it, you'll be just fine. So that is a good example of taking a 45 caliber can, even though the vast majority of the shooting I do with it is on 9mm. It makes sense, especially if it's your first can, you're getting into it. You've got a $200 tax stamp, you've got the cost of the can. These things can start to be cost prohibitive up front if you're trying to buy, let's say, half a dozen cans at once to cover everything. Maybe instead you buy 3, 22, a pistol, and a rifle. Rifle can considerations. If you're only going to be shooting 5.56, let's say, through it, that's it. You're not planning on shooting 308, 300 blackout, anything else. Getting a dedicated 5.56 can may be the way to go, especially if you're going to be using on short barrel rifles and you're going to be running it hot and you need something that's going to take that abuse. 5.56 can is going to be the way to go. Now on the other side of it, you're going to be running it primarily on 16-inch barrels, and you will be shooting 308 or some larger calibers, and 7.62 range, whatever, 300 blackout, let's say. Going with a larger can, dedicated, 7.62 can, or not dedicated, but a 7.62 can that you can change out the adapters. 7.62 can, right? You can change out those adapters, and you can put 1/2x28 on it, put it on your 5.56 rifle, and then shoot through it. So consider what your application is and how likely you are to use it. Now, if you want to go out of the gate and get yourself these dedicated things, sure. That kind of handles, I think, the caliber side of things. The other side would be the construction. So construction, and it's hard to kind of quantify these in order. Construction is going to mean what's it made of, right? So is it Inconel, is it stainless steel, aluminum, and depending on what you're going to be using it for will depend on what material that is. When you start getting down to the 22s especially, you can use anything from stainless steel, Inconel, like titanium, aluminum, a number of different things. Your considerations for that are going to be how much use it's going to get. So you want to make sure you're getting something that's rated for what you're going to use it for. So if you're using it on a short barrel, it needs to be rated for that short barrel. If you're using something on a Magnum cartridge, it needs to be rated for that Magnum cartridge. If you're shooting a lot of 22 through it, when it comes to the serviceability aspect of it, how much time do you want to spend in there manually cleaning it versus using something, let's say, like the dip? If you're using the dip, there's only certain materials you can put in that, and if you put the wrong materials in there, you're going to ruin your silencer. And we've covered that in another video, so I won't get this into a cleaning video on this. Perhaps maybe a future video we'll do on cleaning. But that's a really important consideration that you need to take into account. Next is going to be manufacturer. And I say this in the overall scheme of things. I am not talking about the biggest manufacturers or even necessarily best manufacturer. My point here on manufacturer is going to also play into accessories. I'm kind of jumping ahead on that. When you're looking at buying a silencer, let's say you have two different silencers, you are torn between the two. You really honestly don't know where to go. Looking at the manufacturer, and this doesn't mean the biggest manufacturer, the biggest name. Looking at how do they stand behind the customer? What sort of relationship do they have with customers? Are they engaging with their customers, let's say, on social media? And I don't mean pandering to them. What I mean is that if a customer has a question, are they responsive? Are you seeing good feedback from customers saying, hey, I had this issue with my can, they took care of it? Some manufacturers out there, you will see that they will go above and beyond, even if it's a can that's either out of the warranty date or it's from a Bowers, for example, is a great group. Bowers, from 20 years ago, they had a different company. They've been Bowers for roughly 20. I don't remember the full company history, but I do remember a specific incident where a customer had an older can that Mr. Bowers had made from a different company. And with absolutely no obligation or anything else, Mr. Bowers serviced that can, and in addition to it, brought it up to current specs of what would be close to what's currently manufactured, just because it was what he felt like was the right thing to do. So when you're looking for buying a silencer and you're torn between two, pick one that you feel like is going to that represents your values. Are they fighting for you? Let's say your right to keep and bear arms. Are they respecting you as a customer? Are they respecting their other customers and clients? So that would be my suggestion there. If you're on the fence, you don't know which way to go, choose a company that respects you and represents your morals and values. Noise reduction. So this is a big one that I wanted to touch on, decibels, right? A lot of people go and chase decibels. No, the numbers do not lie. But as we've seen from our testing from numerous different people, different independent tests, on any given day at any given time, any given silencer can vary by at least 1.5 dBs in either direction based upon the temperature, the rifle, and even from 16-inch to 16-inch rifle or 14.5-inch rifle to 14.5-inch rifle. Even from, lot of ammunition to lot of ammunition, if it's the same grain, the same company, everything else, right? We've seen it before. Some of the Gemtech subsonic ammo that we've tested out here, we've scratched our heads after shooting, like, what the, what is this? My suggestion to you there is to look at everything in its totality. Take the numbers with a grain of salt, so to speak. There's two 308 silencers that we've had in here that Silencer Shop also tested that put up virtually identical numbers. They're two of the quietest, basically, 308 cans are out on the market for in their same size range. Regular, full-size type can. One of which is the Verse 30 here. The other one would be the Q Full Nelson, not to be confused with the half, but the full. And I really don't want to get into names here because I'm not trying to. I'm trying to give you overall information, but at the same time, I want to give you real-world examples of what we have here. So those are two cans that metered in very closely. In some instances, they're basically within 0.5 dB of each other, very close. But when you listen from the earometer, if you have two different 308 cans, 5.56 cans, pistol cans, whatever, there will be, depending on what it is, there will be a hearing difference between the two. Even if they meter almost identically or identically, the way that they're constructed, the way that they're made, they will sound a little different to each shooter's ear. So some, for example, that full Nelson sounded a little sharper to me and had a slightly higher pitch to it. This verse 30 had a more, I don't want to say dull, but it had a flatter tone to it, and it didn't seem as high pitched, and to the ear it actually sounded quieter, even though on the meter they're virtually identical. They're so close, and you look at the various testing that other channels have done, Silencer Shop has done, other independent testing has done, and they are neck and neck every single time. So the earometer does come into play, because if it sounds better to you and it's right in that same 1.5 dB range, get the one that sounds better to you. That can be hard though, because obviously with the rules on how hard it is to acquire silencers, if you want to test one out or try one out, if your buddy has one, your buddy has to be there while you're using and testing, that silencer. Same thing if, you go into a shop, maybe there's a shop that has a range and they'll let you test fire one. They're obviously going to have to be there and present, because unless you are a responsible party, you can't possess that silencer. And if you're out of their view and their jurisdiction, that is the wrong word, but if you're out of their sphere of influence while they're there, then you would be violating the law. So they have to be there physically on site and with you while you utilize these things. So that makes it hard. So you have to watch videos like mine and others to try and get a sense and determine what you're going to get. And it's so hard for the camera to pick that up. So again, my best suggestion there would be, don't get too caught up on chasing dBs when things are really close. And go with some of these other considerations perhaps, if things are neck and neck and you're not sure where to go, or especially if they're within 1.5 dBs, they're going to be there. Now remember, there's a doubling effect as the dBs go. They doesn't scale proportional. Their dBs matter, but at the same time, you shouldn't necessarily be chasing them just to be chasing them. Accessories are a big deal. So if you're going to, and this goes into consideration of the manufacturer and some other things that I talked about earlier. If you're, let's say you're considering buying another rifle can, and you already have one or two rifle cans from manufacturer A that take certain accessories, and you already have muzzle devices, adapters, and all these other things for that brand. Now you're looking at getting a rifle can from another brand. If all things are equal and you just wanted to go with this brand over the brand you have simply because you want something new, rock on. At the same time, consider that you may be needing to buy all new accessories and mounting devices if you want to take them across multiple platforms. That increases the cost. Some of these adapters can be $40 or $50. Some of these muzzle devices are $99 to $150, depending, what the company is, what it is, things like that. If things are neck and neck and you're not sure where to go, considering what accessories you have, may give you a good indication of where you want to go. At the same time, there's something nice to have variety. And do you really need, especially if it's your third, fourth, fifth rifle can, do you really need that new can to go on all of your rifles? Or are you happy with the one adapter it comes with, or one muzzle device? Maybe you want to buy one extra, whatever the case may be. Especially if you're looking on a promo, there are a number of companies that will do promos every so often. Right now, with the way things are, I haven't seen any recently. But in the past, you'll find a manufacturer who will give you, if you buy during this time frame, not take delivery, but if you just buy and file for your tax stamp during this time period, whatever time period it is, they will give you, one or two free muzzle devices or adapters, whatever the case may be. In that case, that may be a good segue to jump into and say, hey, I want to try out this other brand that I think highly of, just don't happen to have yet. So again, these are all considerations that take into account that are very specific, and that's what makes it hard to do a video like this, because everybody has their own thoughts on what they want, their own concerns and their own needs, and trying to suggest, all right, I'm going to put it right out there. If you ask somebody, what can should I buy? And they immediately, without any questions, throw out a name, disregard what they have to say. If they're not asking, if you haven't in the original question provided, what calibers you're going to be using, your requirements, these various different things, and they just immediately throw something out there, just kind of disregard what they have to say. I mean, if they're not first following up with questions like I'm bringing up here today, and considerations that I'm bringing up here today, kind of probably means they're a fanboy and they're biased toward what they're saying. And I hate to put it out there that way, but buying a silencer is a long-term commitment, right? It's basically a lifetime commitment. When you're buying one of these, let's say you're buying a 22 can, 22 can, $400 can, roughly, right? $200 tax stamp. That's $600 you're into that. If you go to sell that, generally speaking, best case scenario, you're going to get half price for it. Used silencers normally don't bring a huge price. Then you got to pay the transfer tax of $200. If somebody's already going to be spending $400 for something used, chances are they're probably going to kick in the extra $200 and just buy it brand new, because they don't want to go through the hassle of, especially if you've got it on, if it's registered to yourself, you got to transfer it to the dealer. They got to do the transfer. It's a pain, right? It is what it is. So generally speaking, if you're buying a can, just assume it's pretty much for life and you're going to own this thing forever. We put in considerations before about buying it trust versus individual. And you can go back and watch the video on how to buy a silencer. I give my reasons why. Generally speaking, I am always supportive of the trust over filing as an individual. Even if you're single, you don't have any kids, you don't have any family, anything else, unless you put it in a trust. Just go ahead. I'll list the reasons in that other video. I've kind of rambled here. This video is kind of going long. At the same time, though, I wanted to take some of these thoughts and compile them together, because it's important for you to understand and that there is no easy answer when it comes to this. If you ask, what pistol can should I buy, and somebody immediately throws out an answer, same thing with rifle can, whatever. Just be like, take it with a large grain of salt. So one other consideration is, and a big one, is going to be budget. And we kind of touched on this, briefly throughout this. Consider what your budget is. Are you just going to get one silencer? Are you getting two? Is it your 10th silencer? Figure out exactly what you want, what you can spend, and then what you're willing to spend. So for example, we've done a couple videos where in the title there'll be something like, is it still relevant? So you're talking about something that's 1 or 2 generations old, comparing it to the latest and greatest. And in a lot of those instances, the 1 or 2 generation old silencer is pretty close to the current one for quarter, third, half the price. So buying older technology isn't always the bad way to go. Just because it's older, maybe there's a dB or 2 difference, especially when you're talking about something in a 22 caliber can, for example. Some of the 5-ish year old designs that are out there that are significantly less expensive than the current ones, man, it's hard to go wrong with those, especially if you're looking to get a couple extra cans, a dedicated can. For example, let's say you've got, you want to leave one specifically on your 22 long rifle, for varmint hunting, let's say, or something like that. Predator, small predator control, something like that. A 22 caliber rifle can that's 5 years old on a 16-inch rifle is going to sound pretty darn close, if not almost identical, to the most modern thing you're going to get. Now you start seeing huge differences as the barrels start shortening. You're talking about 3 or 4 inch 22 pistol. Yeah, you're going to see much larger differences. But a 16-inch rifle, why worry about it? The same thing goes for rifle can, stuff like that. If it's generation or 2 old, you can save a significant amount of money buying that older technology over the new if budgetary concerns are an issue. So look at all the information, use it to form an informed opinion, and take it from there. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Do your research, do your due diligence, and I think you're going to come out of it all right. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of questions after this. You know, think about the overall picture. Don't necessarily rush into buying. If you haven't bought one, watch the video before this one on how to buy a silencer. It's really easy. Once you do it, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. It's not as complicated or as tricky as people think. We remove some of the myths off of there and stuff like that. Like, can the ATF just show up at your house, and demand to see inside your safe, and similar myths. So check that video out. We go through everything there, and as I'm looking forward to getting cameras back out on the range here in the next week or two. We're supposed to be hitting the 30s next week, and I cannot wait to be able to get out there and get shooting on video again. We've done some shooting in the cold, done some cold weather shooting and testing out here, but there's no substitute for being able to get you guys out there on camera with us, so you can see what we're actually doing, as opposed to just telling you after the fact. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody. We really appreciate it. Facebook.com/gun reviews. Fascist Book is doing its thing. Visit us on the other social media platforms. Of course, if you're watching this, you follow the chain. You probably already realized, tens of thousands of subscribers got nixed with our Instagram page getting purged for absolutely no reason, with no warning and with no prior strikes. We have a Patreon account if you're interested in checking us out over there, and we do have some unique swag like these patches and stuff like that up on our big cartel shop if you're interested in checking that out. Thanks again, everybody. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you on the other side. Amazing 9mm cans. We've tested several of them here on the channel. For example, 9mm modular can. Not always are modular cans going to be the way to go, but if it, the has been one of our favorites in that list. And I don't want to make this into, I should even scrap that and not even mention thing, because there are several great 9mm cans we've tested, and I don't know that we necessarily want to get off into the weeds on that. In fact, I'm just going to stop this right now and maybe start over.